But what I've learned, Madam Speaker, is that Canadians hate two things. Many other issues they disagree upon. There perhaps is not consensus. But Canadians hate waste, first of all, and they hate inefficiency. And I've got some data to support that, Madam Speaker. A poll by Arcus indicates that 73.9% of Canadians believe the federal government is inefficient, and 50% believe in making government more efficient without reducing services. So even Canadians recognize the waste and inefficiency of this government. And this is something that they have a very good track record and shows in time and time again in the many situations where they have failed. Just this week alone, we saw the tabling by the Auditor General of her evaluation of modernizing the pay system, and this is a major project, Madam Speaker. $4.2 billion of Canadian taxpayer funds are being used to overhaul this system, yet the government is failing. They are failing to do the transfer from the old system to the new system, and that is costing Canadians $4 million a year. Over several years, this is millions and millions of dollars to add to the $4.2 billion project. And with that, significant failure. There is still currently a backlog of 235,000 cases, with many of those more than a year old. And the Auditor General went on to say that they needed to simplify and standardize rules before introducing a new system, something that they should have learned from the Phoenix evaluation and the Phoenix fiasco, but they didn't learn. So we are seeing a government that continues to waste the taxpayer dollars of Canadians, that continues to be inefficient, but worst of all, they're not learning their lessons. And we saw that here just in the presentation of the Auditor General's report on Monday. But it's not just there, Madam Speaker. This past year, in 2025, we had the Auditor General this past year also table the review of the ArriveCan application. And her report showed, again, more of the same, and Liberals not having learned their lesson when it comes to being able to deliver effective and efficient services for Canadians. And in addition, they have a significant problem enforcing their own rules. So not only are they incompetent, they are unable to provide a clear standard of service across their government when improving something or implementing something. And the examples within the ArriveCan review included 21% lacked security clearances when they looked at the individuals who were brought in to work on the project. 33% of contracts could not show contract resources, had the experience and the qualifications needed to complete the required work. 58% did not document assessment of evaluation of ongoing bids. Again, this is the waste. They're not doing a comparison of value for money to see where they're receiving the best bid, the best value for money. 50% in the sample did not have adequate security, in addition to the 21% with no security clearance. 58% with poorly documented timesheets of individuals who submitted documents within the project. 82% of federal organizations could not prove that fees did not exceed the market rates. This is why they are failing as a government. They are even incapable of achieving market rates, something that small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large corporations have as a practice and have to do within Canada. This government isn't capable of doing it, and they are capable of learning how to do it, as these repeated reports of failure keep coming in from the Auditor General and elsewhere. And only 54% could prove that deliverables were received. Like when you go to the grocery store and you pay for a tomato, you have the tomato. Or when you go and you buy a T-shirt, you have the T-shirt. The government couldn't do this. They couldn't prove that they had actually received what they had paid for. Another example, Madam Speaker, is going back to the 2024 ArriveCAN report that the Border Services Agency, the Public Health Agency, and Public Services and Procurement Canada repeatedly failed to follow good management practices in the contracting, development, and implementation of the ArriveCAN application. As a result of the many gaps and weaknesses, the Auditor General found the project's design oversight and accountability, and that it did not deliver the best value for the taxpayer dollar spent. Again, we're seeing the waste, the inefficiency. The enduring benefit of the ArriveCAN application cannot be proven, and thank goodness as of October 2022, ArriveCAN was no longer used to collect travelers' health and contact information, although I do think I have seen it recently. It goes further back than that. It goes to the 2023 Auditor General report of the transformation of systems delivering critical benefits to Canadians, again, the Benefits Delivery Modernization Program, where, again, they experienced repeated delays, cost increases, and staff challenges since its launch in 2017. You know, we always hear about this government blaming the previous administration. They have had a decade now to clean up not only the report on the modernization pay system that was reported by the modernization pay system. There's a new one in addition to Phoenix called Dayforce that they're failing on as well. Thank you for the reminder. But as well, going back to this benefit delivery modernization system. So we're seeing failure in a benefit system, failure in a system that was supposed to help Canadians at a critical time in our history, and then failure for public servants in the pay system, a history of failure with this government. But I'll tell you, Madam Speaker, as I mentioned at the top of my speech, I have been doing this role now for a long time, and I have consistently seen three problems with this government that I will use in the last couple of minutes here to summarize. Number one, the government really likes to get its friends to do things. We saw this with McKinsey in the last Parliament, whereby we could pull in so many different government departments, immigration, housing, infrastructure, that use their friends from McKinsey. If you go to your friend, are you going to get a good deal? No, this government wants to help their close friends and insiders. So who loses? The Canadian taxpayer. The Canadian taxpayer does not benefit when this government gets a good deal from their friend. Number two, they are incapable of maintaining a project within its scope and not having an overrun. Every single project, all three of these examples in these reports I have shown today, have shown overruns, have shown their lack of capacity to get things done efficiently, on time, within the parameters that were created. And finally, no one in the government takes accountability, ever. It's always the last administration's fault, this Director General's fault. We saw this with ArriveCAN. This government would rather ruin the life of an individual than take accountability for the mistakes that they made. Madam Speaker, we see time and time again with this government. They are incapable of inefficiency. They do nothing but waste the money of the taxpayer, and all of these examples prove it, and I'm happy to stand up here and talk on and on about that today because it's so easy to. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her very eloquent speech. It's good to hear a speech about accountability in this House. In the case of the CURM software, we knew that there were problems. 5 different jurisdictions have been dealing with problems with CURM. We saw that in Australia and in Ontario. In 2015, an Ontario AG report stated that there were problems, but nonetheless, in 2017, the government decided to move forward with CURM. Who was the minister at that time? Well, one has to wonder, because of course I can't name any names. But 10 years later, after 10 years of this Liberal government and mistakes with IT projects, the current Prime Minister has reappointed the same minister for the same responsibilities at ESDC. Who is responsible for the current situation? And is this not why we need an independent inquiry? The honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore. I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. And I'd just like to clarify that I do not live in Singapore, but in Calgary-Midnapore, because my colleague, I think, misspoke. But I have visited Singapore. It's a magnificent place, but Calgary-Midnapore is even nicer. Now, regarding today's debate, we are in agreement on the fact that there are serious problems here. This government seems incapable of avoiding waste. It seems incapable of doing things right. My colleague said that we could look for examples of places where things were done properly. We could improve how we do things. But currently we don't have an example of that with this government. As my colleague said, it's been more than 10 years. It's incredible. We agree. We need to ask for better from our government. Thank you.
Chair to the Government House Leader.
Well, Madam, to no surprise of the member opposite, I'm sure, at the end of the day, the member makes reference that we could have done better. I think that principle of doing better could apply universally to any provincial, federal government, not only present, but history. You can always do better. And that's one of the reasons why I would ultimately argue that there is a potential role for opposition members and government to work well at standing committees and maybe trying to get some of the answers that the member is looking for. But does the Conservative Party actually support the principle of modernization of what is actually happening?
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
What I support is a government that actually chooses to do better. This was actually the trademark of their previous Prime Minister in the previous iteration of this government, which continues to this day, was the mantra that they could do better. Is doing better 2.2 million Canadians going to the food bank? Is doing better an $80 billion deficit? Is doing better 100,000 job losses in a single month? I continue to urge this government and this member to try and do better, because they said they're going to for a decade, and they haven't.
Questions et commentaires. Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank my honourable colleague for that excellent speech, because she highlighted really, she hit the nail on the head with respect to how this government looks at Parliament, and also how this government acts when it comes to having to do something as important as the system that we're talking about today. My question to my honourable colleague is simply this: why is it does she think that the government doesn't simply say, we made a mistake, we didn't do a good job? You know, being humble is a good attribute. Why don't they just say, we didn't do a good job? We don't only want to listen to you in standing committee. Come and help us get this job done right, because there are seniors, there are people, families across the country that are so dependent on this system that unfortunately are suffering because of the consequences of the lack of action from this government.
Member for Calgary-Midnapore in 20 seconds.
Yeah, this government doesn't care. They don't care about Canadians. If you have 2.2 million Canadians at a food bank, they're willing to waste $80 billion of your money just this year alone. They are willing to allow 100,000 people in a single month, your dad, your brother, your son, go without a job. If they really cared, they would try and do better, and they don't.
Remind the Honourable Member.